Hello and welcome to another episode of the Happy Home Show, where today I am joined by Dr. Stan Tatkin, who is a clinician, a researcher, teacher, and developer of a psychological approach to couple therapy, PACT. He has a clinical practice in Calabasas, and with his wife, Dr. Tracy Tatkin, co-founded the PACT Institute for the purpose of training other psychotherapists to use this method in their clinical practice. In addition, Dr. Tatkin teaches and supervises family medicine residents and is an assistant clinical professor at the UCLA David Geffen School of Medicine, Department of Family Medicine. He is on the board of directors of Lifespan Learning Institute and serves as a member on Relationships First Council, which is a non-profit organization. So Stan, it is so great to have you here. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Jessica. I'm sorry. I wish I had known in advance. I would have shortened that bio for you so you didn't have to read so much.
No, that's okay. I think it's good. Everybody knows how much wonderful work you're doing. So it serves us to know. How are you all the way over on the other side of the world?
Great. We're just actually took a couple of days off. My wife is dealing with some back pain, so we never get time off. We're always working, and so this is really nice.
Yeah, good. And for everyone listening, I first heard Stan talk on Mark Grove's podcast, and you have a TED talk out there as well. So I've been wanting to chat with you for such a long time, and I follow your stuff and I read it all of the time on Instagram.
Aww.
All of the time, really. And I love your approach, with which everyone who is listening will benefit from. Just please tune in till the very end, because if there is ever an issue in your relationship, a reoccurring issue, something that you know is going on internally that you're creating or that you keep attracting, then I know, Stan, you're going to be able to help out today. So Stan, how would you describe yourself and your work, out of curiosity? So what's the best description you have for everybody listening?
Of myself? I somebody who found my passion in this work in psychology. I used to be a musician, believe it or not. I was come from a musical family, and that was the first part of my life until around 26 to 30.
Wow.
And then I got into this field and never looked back.
Wow. What changed?
I think realizing that I had outgrown the experience of being in show business. I started when I was 6 and was with my brother off and on. And I think there was a point at which I had it. I was done.
Yeah.
I was ready for something else. And I'm glad of it, even though I loved that time.
Yeah.
So I still carry music though into my work, not formally, but it's there, just like I did theater for a while, and that's part of my work as well. So a lot of the stuff that we thought didn't really matter and wasn't going to be useful, surprise, can still be used later on in life with our passions.
Yeah. We always find the reason why we've gone through something or chosen something, don't we? And so now you work with couples, Stan. So I'd love to make use of your wisdom and what you do for everyone listening. And so I guess with the couples that you work with and the years of experience you have, where are we going wrong? Let's start there, because we wouldn't be listening to something like this if everything was rosy, right? Usually there's something we want to improve on. So where are we fundamentally going wrong most of the time in our relationships if there's too much conflict?
Well, if there's too much conflict, there's always going to be some conflict. It's the manner in which we interact when one or both of us is under stress. That is always the problem. It doesn't matter the subject matter, whether it's money, time, mess, sex, kids, religion. If the subject matter is stressful and we're not really good at remaining collaborative and cooperative with each other, we're going to start to accrue what's called threat memory. Threat memory is memory that of being hurt or misjudged, misunderstood, and if it's not repaired quickly, it goes into memory, and if it's very intense and goes on for a while, it goes into long-term memory. And so this tends to have an accumulative effect biologically, so that eventually we stop seeing each other as allies, stop seeing each other as friends, and we start to confuse each other as adversaries, or worse, as predators. And this is the human condition. This is across the board with all human primates, regardless of where that person is from, their history, their trauma history, their gender or sex, doesn't really matter. If you're a human primate, you're going to, you're going to be vulnerable to this survival instinct issue of tuning into threatening cues from the face, voice, movements, words, phrases, and so on.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the biggest issue you see. So let's start, if we can, from the beginning then, because a lot of parents will be listening to this, so they're thinking about their child all of the time, but even us as adults, we need to understand the childhood component too. So what do we need to understand about our childhood and how that contributes to our relationships now?
Well, there's several factors. I mean, one of which is genetic, another is constitutional, and then there's the phenomenology of human development that we can't really account for, although there are several things that we can look to kind of get an idea of trajectory. So attachment theory is one. The attachment theory looks at safety and security from the subjective viewpoint of the infant, child, adolescent, adult. And this is strictly about safety and security, not about love, although people often confuse it with love. And that is an adaptation to a cultural environment set by the parents' own cultural experiences. When I say cultural, I mean specifically attachment values. So all babies, all children have to adapt to the environment they're born into, right? We're little, and we're amongst gods, and the gods call the shots, and we have to make do with what we have. And we have to also make those relationships secure enough in our heads so that we can survive, even if the environment is not secure, even though perhaps the relationships, primary attachment relationships, are less than secure. Children will still find a way to make up for that, even though it is too unfair, too unjust, too insensitive too much of the time with regard to insecure attachment. That gets paid forward in our adult relationships if it doesn't get fixed, repaired.
Yeah.
So that's personality is another.
Okay. And what's the realm of personality? What does that mean?
Personality is basically a structure. I mean, everything is built from the ground up at the very beginning, and everything goes from that point on. Personality tends to be a little bit more static, harder to change. That's why we look at disorders of the self in adulthood, where people have a chronic issue that's based in development, partly in genetics. And these personality structures are rather resilient and hard to change, hard to shift. So personality, everyone has one, but there are different forms that they take and the different trajectories developmentally, but they're a little harder to shift and change in life. Whereas attachment is a fluid situation that is based on current relationship, primary relationship. And if that relationship is secure, it'll pull that person, whether it's a child or an adult, generally speaking, into more security. So it's a fluid plastic situation. It's not set in stone, which is
Okay.
good news.
That is good news. And is there a really simple example that you could give us to try and determine if what we're experiencing is either more fluid or it's kind of harder to change?
Well, in terms of attachment, you mean?
Yeah. Or issues that we might be facing in our relationship. Is that our personality or is that something to do with my attachment style? If I was to ask that question of myself.
So let's just take the average person who is neurotic, psychoneurotic. That person is basically guilty, feels guilty, generally speaking, and feels the weight of the world on their shoulders. That's good. That's what we call everyday person, right? Same with attachment. People who are in the secure area, which is a pretty wide berth, are generally less encumbered. They're generally not carrying a burden. That is a major adaptation that is usually about pain avoidance, loss avoidance, and so on. So the more that we carry a burden, let's say, of trauma, early trauma, or abandonment, neglect, intrusion, anything that causes us to adapt and to put protections in place so that we don't get hurt again, cause us to spend more energy than the average bear. And that energy is measured in interpersonal stress. So the amount of interpersonal stress that we're under at any given time is considered an allostatic burden, meaning we pay for our having to adapt through the vicissitudes of life, slings and arrows. And the more that we carry from childhood, insecurity, personality disorder, unresolved trauma, the more we expend these neurochemicals and hormones that are cytotoxic and that tend to burn cells over time. So think of it as entropy, wear, and tear. And so that's one of the things we're concerned with in terms of relationships. The amount of interpersonal stress that two people or one person carries is causing wear and tear and leads to problems with the autoimmune system and inflammatory system and metabolic and cardiovascular. So look out for that. So it affects happiness and longevity and so on. Yeah. Let's take personality disorders, and just for a moment, those are usually harder to repair, and it depends on the severity of a personality disorder. But that is something that has to do with a developmental delay, theoretically, at a period that is before we go from dyads to triads as children, or Freud would say pre-Oedipal, right? The Oedipal is really dyads to triads. It's getting out of the exclusive orbit with my caregiver, usually mother, and having to accept a third that is competing with my caregiver's attention, exclusive attention, where I have to now adapt and move into threes instead of twos, which prepares me for groups and so on. Personality disorders didn't quite make it through that period, theoretically, and are still seeking some of those childhood, infant needs throughout adulthood, and life is just harder for those folks. Okay. Insecure attachment's different. Insecure attachment is simply safety and security from the point of view of whether I was allowed to depend fully and whether I was allowed to be autonomous when I needed to be without fear of punishment, rejection. So those two things Basically, a secure attachment we might think of as being in a family relationship or in a dyadic relationship with a caregiver who is fully present, attentive, fully resourced, curious about my mind, wants to know me, a lot of skin to skin, face to face, eye to eye, sustained contact. And the relationship tends to be primary, not the self in terms of the parent. And therein lies the problem with insecure attachment. The parental or caregiver culture is more focused on the self first, not relationship first. And therefore, the child has to adapt by either giving up their autonomy, independence in order to stay young and dependent and cling to the caregiver, or they have to give up their dependency and have to be independent before they're ready. And these people become part of the distancing group in attachment, insecure attachment, as opposed to the clinging group. So that's the difference between personality and attachment. It's not a personality. It is a memory of what happens when I depend on you.
Wow. I love that in a nutshell. That's so perfect, isn't it? It's a memory of what I do when I depend on you, right? That's
what's going to happen. As soon as I feel like I'm depending on you or you're depending on me, I remember either I'm going to get smothered, engulfed, have my autonomy, independence taken from me or my stuff. I'll be intruded on and interrupted, or I will be rejected. You'll withdraw from me. You'll abandon me. You'll punish me if I ask for too much. And I think of the clinging side as more codependent, right? In the traditional, the classic sense that we think of.
Yeah. Right? Wow. That's so great to understand. And so if we look at it from the child's perspective growing up, Stan, and we want to reflect on our own childhood and figure out some stuff. So where, what parts need working on if we do feel like there is that insecure attachment or that avoidance, right? And I have to say, that's been me. There's really been the fear of rejection for me. So that has been all encompassing for me in my relationship, that fear of rejection. And then I become codependent. So I latch and I cling and I test, and it's very toxic. And so I've really needed to work on that, and it's really difficult. It's challenging. So I guess I'd love to know from your perspective with your clients, where do we start? Where do you start if you want to work on that?
Well, first, the good news is that people on the clinging side are closer to secure than people on the distancing side. People on the distancing side, we believe, are delayed developmentally earlier in time than people on the clinging side. So human primates are dependency animals. We are dependency animals. Anything to imagine other than that is a fantasy. There are, I'm sure, outliers out there that can work on a pipeline somewhere in Alaska and never see another human being without going crazy, we think. But most of us, we're herd animals that tend to pair bond within herds, and we're kind of clingy animals. And so that's more normal than others or people might think. The distancing aspect is not as common. Well, I should say it is very common in the West, in terms of aggregates of people. But if we look at the human being in its ordinary habitat, we're pretty clingy animals. We need other people quite a bit in almost every way. So I wouldn't feel so bad about that. Maybe you're finding too many distancing folk. Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe, well, I sense the distance and then I get scared and freaked out. So then I come on in and then I'm scared of rejection. And then I will be, then because I'm scared of that rejection, then I will feel like, well, I better just distance myself, because if I get rejected, that will hurt more. So it's preempting the rejection. Then I go backwards and then I isolate and then I don't know how to come back again. That's generally been my habit.
Right. So remember, once we get into a dyadic relationship, it's a system, and the system is quite different than looking at individual attachment formation. Right now, we have a phenomenological intersubjective system that's reacting to itself. So you don't know whether your fears of rejection aren't coming off in some way as threatening to another person, who then defends themselves in a way that's threatening to you. And now we have a loop that starts to amplify itself, and it's hard to tell who's doing what. In couples, there's no angels, no devils. Where there's one, there's always the other. And so it's not exactly what people think. It really isn't. And I would say attachment isn't the single most important thing or blockade or challenge to love relationships. I would say is. The human brain is. The human nervous system and survival instinct is. And that's across the board. And that's the biggest problem. And that's what people actually know the least about.
So let's talk about that then, because I love that stuff. And I love when I heard you talk about it. Let's talk about that. So can you explain what does that mean, Stan, for somebody who may not understand what this has to do with relationships at all?
Well, if you and forgive me, Jessica, I should know this, but do you have children?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Okay, when you do, you'll know it. But you've been around children. You've seen children. Everything you do is about children. So you know this. Children are off the line, off the factory line human primates. They exemplify exactly the animal we are. Aggressive, warlike, selfish, self-centered, moody, fickle, opportunistic, xenophobic, easily influenced by groups. That is us. No matter where we are, that is us. We'd like to think of ourselves as better than that, and we can be better than that, except and unless we're under a certain amount of stress or distress or threat, in which case we are animals, will do exactly those things that I just mentioned. So in order to get along and to not go to war, we've always needed social contracts, an idea of civilization, ethics, morals, or religious precepts, anything to control the masses. Otherwise, it would be chaos. It would be Sodom and Gomorrah. We'd be doing terrible things to each other. And that's always a possibility if there's, any kind of chaos or natural disaster. There are people who are disciplined and are able to control themselves and still be good citizens, while other people loot and do other things and so on. So this is a problem of being human. And we tend to be rather naive about that. We go into relationships without thinking about how you and I are going to co-create this thing called relationship, which is an abstraction. It doesn't actually exist except in our heads. So it's important that you and I have the same idea, the same image, the same mythology of what this relationship is. Otherwise, we'll fight. Then we have to have a same or a shared sense of purpose as to why we're doing this, why we exist as a couple. What's the point of us? And it cannot be about love or emotion. It has to be about purpose. Then we have to have shared vision. Where are we going and why? These are the necessary things that all unions, alliances in a free society must have, or there will be trouble.
Mm.
Then we have to have governing principles of how we're going to govern each other. What are we going to do and what are we never going to do? So say us both. Without governing principles, we'll do whatever we want if we feel like it. If I don't like you, I'll do something that suits me. So what's to protect us from each other? And that would be, again, our relationship ethics, our ethos, our guardrails, our own culture, you and I, that we co-create, that is ours and ours alone, and it's built to our liking, especially, and it's constantly being molded and shaped as we move through time, you and I. But we're a team, a union. And so I know I'm being very wordy here, but the center of this has to do with secure functioning and two-person psychological thinking. So a two-person psychological system is one of interdependence, meaning that you and I would be equal power and authority. We have the same things to gain and the same things to lose, mutual stakeholders. Therefore, we have to work together or we don't meet our goals. We don't win, we don't survive, we're not happy. Nobody around us is happy because we can't seem to work as a team. It's a team sport. This is the single most difficult thing for human beings to do, unless they're in a culture that demands it, like the military or in paramilitary organizations or dance troops or right, any people, any two or more people that to win, survive, make money. They're going in the same place. They have to work together or they fail. And that's the same with a couple.
And what do you think gets in the way of us being able to do that then? If that's the hardest thing to do, what's getting in our way?
Development, our understanding of being an adult and rising to the occasion by being two leaders, two governors, two bosses, two executives, two generals that have to co-create this thing, no passenger allowed. And then we have to stand up to each other and enforce the rules and principles that we created. And so that takes a lot of character. It takes a lot of an ability to think at a higher level. If we had to survive together, we would do it naturally. But couples tend to not have a general idea of why they're together. We're in love. I'm attracted to you, and that's why we're doing this. The rest of it will fall into place, and that's not true, right? And so that's one. Two, the way the brain works. So you and I meet, and we are on drugs that are intended to get us to mate, because nature really only cares about continuation of the species. That's it. And so we do that. That ship sails. And now we start to get to our baselines, which may not be that great compared to where we were during courtship. Surprise, surprise. And our brain will automate each other, which is nature's way of conserving energy. So everything new is going to be old soon, including you, including me. And that's when the fun starts. That's when we think we know each other and we don't. We start to go into a vast fund of memory that goes all the way back to early childhood, and we become proxies for everybody that came before. And so we think we know each other, but we're basically remembering other relationships that made us feel good or bad, including ourselves. And then we start making a lot of errors. We start to think we're family, which we're not. And we start to take liberties. And we have entitlements that are like family entitlements. And this is an area where we're going to be too unfair, too unjust, too insensitive too much of the time, and start to build resentment. So that's natural.
Yeah. And so where does the nervous system come in, Stan? Because that surely is coming into play and has a pretty massive impact in these scenarios.
Our nervous systems are hugely involved because most of our problems, fights, disagreements are state dependent. It's our state of mind that is causing most of these problems, and great things as well. So you and I are in love, and we remember every time we've had great times, loving times, and so on. So our state of mind is driving our memory, and our memory is driving our state in a loop. Our state is altering our perception like a funhouse mirror. So how we taste, smell, look, touch, feel is driven by state. Now, let's say I do something and you interpret it as threatening to you. Maybe a tilt of my head, a raising of my eyebrow, or a sound or a flick of my something or a word or a phrase that you find threatening, and I don't repair it with you. That is going to drive a state of mind that's going to also help you remember by association other times you felt this way. And if it's been with me, then it's even stronger because we're repeating something that causes inflammation, like in the cells. And that will be a threat memory that begins to accrue over time. And we're doing this with each other because as soon as you get threatened, I get threatened. All of this to say that most of the things we do isn't really purposeful or intentional. It is automatic and reflexive. We're memory animals that are acting and reacting at lightning speeds, according to our nervous system, using recognition systems, pattern recognition, to determine whether we're threatening or not. And that's happening all the time, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
So much of this, that's why I say the human condition is really a no-fault thing.
Yeah.
Attachment is really a no-fault thing. Most of it, what we do, is a no-fault thing, but our ability to think that our communication is good, our hubris, rather, that we think our communication is good, which it isn't, terrible, always. Our memory is reliable, isn't, terrible, always. Our perception is reliable, no, it's constantly changing, as I said. What could possibly go wrong?
I know we're in big trouble, aren't we? Oh, so
it's just that's why I started off this. My first book was "There's nothing more difficult on the planet than another person." We are pain in the asses. We are irritating, annoying, burdensome, disappointing, contradictory animals, and we're quite stupid in many areas, even though we're brilliant.
We really are, but we never think we are in the moment, do we, Stan? We always think that we are right. We always think that we are so knowledgeable and I'm so intelligent. Don't we just? We're so righteous, aren't we?
All the time. Yeah.
All the time. So let's just say that we've in a relationship for a while, okay? And we've got these unhelpful habits of how we are responding to threat in the other person. We don't repair very well. We just sort of sweep things under the rug to just move on, get over it. But the same threats come up, the same issues that we argue about come up. You know, it's repetitive. Because I know a lot of people listening have been in marriages for many, many, many years. And I know a lot of the people that I work with are experiencing, you know, conflict, and they're sick of it. They want to move on. They want to try and heal it. So how do we start altering the habits that we've got with our significant other, with the person that we are in relationship with? Is it that we start on ourselves, Stan, and then it trickles to them? Or is it that we have to, so you've already got the answer. Let's hear it. So what do we need to do?
Everything that we suffer from that has to do with our sense of self and other is all interpersonal, interactional. Therefore, we can't really work on ourselves without being with another. That would be, even therapy is working with another person. So it's all relationship. We're hurt by people, we're healed by people. So sorry, there's no other way to do it but to be in a relationship and fail and learn. The first thing I think is the underuse of one of the greatest inventions of humankind, and that is making amends. The idea of falling on one's sword fully. I'm so sorry, I'm an idiot. You know what? I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. And I'm so sorry. People, it's astonishing how most people do not do this. And this has been known to start wars, cause lawsuits, cause families from being estranged, caused divorces, all sorts of mayhem because of people's refusal to fall on their own sword for the relationship, right? And so in secure functioning, the relationship comes first. The union comes first over my being right. It has to, because we're interdependent. If I try to be right and you lose, I'm going to pay for it very, very soon. There's nothing I can do to you if we're partners that won't come back immediately to me. So here's the image I'd like people to imagine. If you had your legs, your inner legs bound together for a month, tightly, you would get this idea of a team sport. You wouldn't be able to go anywhere. You wouldn't go to the bathroom. You wouldn't eat unless you worked together. You'd have to cooperate and collaborate. You'd have to get each other on board, or you go nowhere. You try to pull apart and it's painful. You try to go too fast and you fall. That is the way it works. And that is what I'm talking about. Interdependence is like having your legs bound. It's not codependence, because codependence is not having the same things to gain and lose. One person has more to gain, one has more to lose in their mind. That's codependence. It's one direction only, and it's unfair. And the codependent is largely responsible for that by not standing up and saying, this is an equal a partnership of shared power, or take care, goodbye. But that's a whole other problem if you want to talk about it. The attachment system is a problem in one way, because it's a biological mandate, an existential demand that I can't quit you, even though I should, even though based on terms and conditions, this is a bad deal for me. And so that, nature's glue that holds us together also causes problems for people like me in this business that are working with couples. So it has a feature set, right? It keeps us together and keeps us from straying. It keeps us to, there to raise our children and to not just go from person to person. But it also is a bug when it comes to, being right-minded and standing by principles instead of that fear of loss. So I say, this is not okay. This won't stand. It's not good for me or you. Therefore, keep it up and you're fired.
Sure. Yeah. And so I want to touch on the parenting aspect for a second, because I know that a lot of parents will come to me and, their fear is, well, I've already ruined my child. I yell too much, or I'm overwhelmed a lot of the time. I'm stressed, I'm scared what I've done to my child already in their future. So what I'd love to hear your view on and opinion on is, as a parent raising these children, your children, what do we need to know or focus on so that our goal is that secure attachment? We want that. We want that with our kids. How do we have the best chance of doing that?
First of all, external situations such as being fully resourced, having a social network, having support. It used to be that was much more available to us. And more and more people are raising kids in isolation. More and more couples are in isolation. People are in isolation. And so we don't have the support of others to help us raise children, which is necessary because, like I said, people are hard, including kids. And so we need to be resourced in order to be present and attentive. So that's really important. The couple relationship, if that is part of this calculus, the couple really needs to come first in terms of hierarchy. So if it's you and I, we decision that highest value hierarchically, organizationally, is to put our relationship first above everything and everyone else. Why would we do that? This certainly doesn't mean jetting off to Panama and leaving our kids in the gutter, right? That's not that. It's not any of that. Or forgoing our careers if the other person says, I want you to quit your job. It's not that. It is simply that if you and I are not in each other's care and guaranteeing every moment of every day each other's ongoing sense of safety and security, well-being, happiness, right? Within the relationship, then nothing else or anyone else is going to fare well. Because if we are the leaders, if we are the exemplars, if we're in charge of everyone and everything, we have to be in tip-top shape. Otherwise, everything will suffer. That's why we put that first, because everyone and everything is depending on us being good. So that is extremely important, because while your attachment to our child and my attachment to my child is very important, especially the primary, but very important, how we are together is what allow children to be children. If you and I are good caregivers, good handlers, I'm a master at Jessica. Jessica's a master at Stan. We are good, right? We're not afraid of each other. We know exactly how to handle each other without a stick or a whip. We use attraction only. Then our children are free to be kids, right? Kids actually need their parents to be in love. They actually need their parents to be, exemplars, basically showing, not telling, how to do relationship. What is our relationship ethics around here? You and I have to show them as the real deal, which means we have to set this up ahead of time. We can't set up shop at the last minute. We can and do, but it's much harder. So it starts and ends with the couple. The couple started this thing. Children are a couple's project. You and I are involved in a project that is not forever, really. Kids are passing through. We're still a couple. We're still girlfriend and boyfriend, or girlfriend and girlfriend and boyfriend throughout. Has to be. And that's how we serve our children. We have a shared purpose in being the best parents we can be, a shared vision in terms of what we want, how we want our children to turn out, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how we do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And since we're different, we're going to have to work together on how we're going to meet the vision.
Sure. And
that can be a lot of bumping up against each other in
yeah,
conflict.
yeah. That takes a lot of practice and a lot of conversations, I bet.
A lot of structures to know what we can and cannot do as we negotiate and bargain.
Yeah, and I'm sure when you say that, Stan, and even when you said it at the beginning, I'm assuming that those structures are in place because our emotions will take over very often, and they will often lead to the destructive decisions and the destructive behaviors, which is easy to fall into that trap if we don't have the structures. Got it.
The reason I say love is not enough, and I don't care about love when it comes to pair bonding, isn't because I'm not a romantic, because I'm absolutely, fatally a romantic, and emotions are very much in the forefront of me, my life. But I also know that leading a life or an organization or a team by emotion is going to cause a dissolution of the team. Love, in its various forms, can lead people to do terrible things. So only purpose, you and I sit down and we think, what is the best thing you and I could do in this instance? What is the right thing to do if this should happen? Even though it'll be the hardest thing to do when it comes time. That's the way to have an awesome life. Let's set the bar high and predict what could possibly go wrong, and set the bar to where we want it, giving each other permission to enforce this. This is where we're pointing. This is where we're going to go. And it's because it must happen based on a purpose, not because we feel like it. Because if we do it because we feel like it, it will never happen.
Oh, yeah. I know that feeling. And that was one of the things I picked up in your podcast, actually. So you brought this up and you said one of the things that you do with your wife, if there has been any tension or conflict, is that at nighttime in bed, so regardless of what's happened, you'll make sure that your feet touch. And that's been in my mind ever since. And I spoke to my partner and I said, let's do this. I want to do this. And my God, is it challenging? And I have to say that I haven't been successful every time. I have not. But I'm trying to reset every time. And because you can feel your body and it's all encompassing, and you feel like you're going to die if you do this, and there's emotional pain and there's fear, all of the things, and
stubbornness, righteousness,
all of it.
We want justice, and I'm going to push you. You got to pay for this.
Oh, yeah, it's all there, right? And that simple thing you said, at least just let your toes touch or your feet touch. And I loved how you explained, because that is, it's settling down the nervous system again. It's just easing it a little bit. So it's not as, in fear mode and heightened with all of those hormones and everything else that's going on. So that was just one idea that I picked up from you. And I think it's great. I think it's great.
We have an agreement. We can go to bed angry, but we have to at least touch toes, and we could touch arms. We touch, and it is challenging. And if it weren't worth anything, it would be easy, but it's worth something. And if you want a good life, it's pay to play. You get what you pay for. If you just live by the seat of your pants, good luck. And so it is hard, and I've struggled. I'm a very stubborn person, and righteous, and all this stuff. I'm as much of an asshole as any other human being on the planet. But I want to be a better person, and I want my relationship to last, and I want my partner to do the same, because it's mutually assured destruction if we don't. So on any given evening, when I have been angry and I didn't want to do this, I would remind myself that this was the agreement. This is the right thing to do, the adult thing to do. But I also remind myself that every time I do it, I immediately feel relief, immediately. And I pledge to everybody out there that you don't have to make up, although that's nice, but if you don't have time, just touch the other person. Something that says, I may hate you right now, but we're okay. It's the we're okay for our species and our health that is essential for being able to do our day, to sleep well, to exist, right? Without that, we're not going to function well. And so the most of the stubbornness and the righteousness and the punishing that we do, if we look at it closely, it's actually self-harming. It's actually self-harming because nobody really is benefiting. We're just suffering until we put the hose of our relationship back together again. We don't have to litigate the past. We don't have to do a deep dive as to why, but we may have to put something in place so that it doesn't happen again. Right? To stop repetition.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so cool to have these little tricks in your toolbox. There's one other question that I'd love to ask you before we finish. I'm mindful of the time, but one of the things, Stan, is intimacy after children, right? And and I know that's the $1 million question for a lot of parents, a lot of married.
Sex, you mean?
Yeah, sexual intimacy. Yeah. And sometimes the emotional intimacy is not there either to even create the yearning or the desire for the sexual intimacy. But so when you have these couples, and I assume that I'm not the first person to ask that question or talk about it, how do we recreate sexual intimacy or intimacy after kids when there's exhaustion, but there really is that desire to get back on track with each other?
Well, last year I wrote a book with one of my colleagues, Kara Hoppy, who went through her first pregnancy called Baby Bomb to prepare couples, not the baby, not for the baby, the couples stay a couple the whole time. So let's remember that when we go from 2s to 3s in adulthood, there's also a disruption, right? Particularly for the secondary parent. The primary parent has a new primary. Yay. The secondary parent is like, what the? And now I'm feeling a little jealous here. This third is interfering with my needs and wants. If I'm not prepared ahead of time, if we're not prepared ahead of time. So that has to be organized in advance, right? So how we're going to do this. But also there is a whole host of changes that go on in the person who carries the child, right? There's hormonal differences, body changes. There's such a thing called overtouch of get away. Everything's pulling on me, grabbing me. And you are grabbing me. You're like another baby. Leave me alone. And so there's has to be an understanding of what that could possibly be like for the secondary parent who has not gone through it. And I say secondary parent because it could be a female. Sure. The same problems happen. So sexual desire, self-esteem, feelings about the body changing, aging, libido, pain, all these things have changed this person, and any change in one person changes the other, right? In a system, change one person, the other person is also now not the same and may not like what has changed. So then we start to think about what is intimacy? What is lovemaking? Is it the sex act, or is it something more profound and something much bigger than our genitals, and then performance or a dominant end, let's say, of orgasm? All those things are lovely, but when they become performative, and when one person at least feels that there is a demand, it can be deadly to the relationship. As I see it, real lovemaking is for all time. It is eye to eye. In the eyes, we fall in love with each other. We're always young in the eyes, but it's also, just like we talked about, coming full circle with baby, it's being able to be fully present and attentive when we choose to, which means undistracted. You and I are in real time improvising, maybe shooting the breeze, but we're curious. Again, remember, we're not family. We'll never be family. Our babies are family, their blood, but we're not. We're strangers, constantly trying to get to know each other, which is a lifelong endeavor, which means there's always something more to know about you and myself. And what better place is during lovemaking? And that is curiosity, working through things, shooting. Again, pillow talk. All of these things that are lost arts because we have automated each other, and we've stopped to just be together and smell the roses and be time travelers together, and not look back to what was, but what is and what will be. That is for all time. And people who are good at this and into their old age know this. They've learned this if they didn't know it before, and they are still lovers. But they may not be doing the same things that they did when they were in their 30s or their 20s.
Sure.
They are. They're outliers that do that, and they're freaks as far as I'm concerned. How dare they? But but
good luck to them. Good luck.
Well, there's a theory out there that that these men and women that are very frisky all the way through into their 70s and 80s were exposed to a lot of testosterone in utero.
Okay, interesting. So we've got even more to consider. Does it ever end? Does it ever end?
Well, it's just, most of this is science and nature and beyond our understanding, and so we blame each other, which is really stupid. And that's the purpose of my talking today, is that we're too hard on each other, and not skillful enough.
Right. Thanks for that, Stan. So what I'm hearing from you is that, to start working on that intimacy again is really that curiosity about each other. I love what you're saying around we're not family, we're strangers. And if we can keep that mindset, then it can keep us curious about each other and keep some, that freshness or that interest. And we all want to be interested in, don't we? We all want our partner to feel like they're curious about us and that we're important enough to be interested in and ask me questions. We all want that.
It's free, isn't it? Otherwise, we'd have to pay someone a lot of money. It's not only free, but I don't want someone else coming along and doing that. It's my job, right?
Yeah.
And so, we will carry an image of our partner's face in our heads for weeks and months without ever really looking at our partner's face again.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that is the extent to which we're conserving energy at all times.
Yeah. Gosh.
And that's a good thing, but we're also missing out. We're not in step with time, and we're not actually paying attention.
Yeah. And I imagine even doing that simple thing about being present with that face, even, or just looking them directly in the eyes, how much that can alter in that moment.
Staring.
Yeah. Gazing. That's right. Deeply, deeply. So Stan, I thank you so much for chatting with me. I just love how you explain things. What's the quickest way somebody can find out a bit more about you?
Easy. Go to the PACT, P-A-C-T, institute.com, thepactinstitute.com. There you'll find, our faculty. You'll find, if you are a mental health professional, psychiatrist, and medicine. We do trainings of the psychobiological approach to couple therapy. It's a quite intensive, very complex polytheoretical approach. That's science. It's basically developmental and neuroscience based.
Yeah.
And also Tracy and I do couple workshops and retreats all over the world throughout the year. So you can find that there.
Great. That's awesome news for all of us international
And
people.
I have a new book coming out called In Each Other's Care, which will be out in March. And I'm now doing a revised version of Wired for Love as well.
Amazing. Well, I'll make sure that all of those links are in here, especially when that book comes out, because it will be after March. So that's perfect. Great. So Stan, I'd love to do these quick 5 questions, 5 words, very quick. So for you, self-expression is?
Sublime.
What do children need most from their parents?
Attention.
Which common belief about child behavior do you disagree with?
That children should be left crying and left alone to learn how to self-regulate.
What are you currently working on within yourself?
How to deal with aging.
Beautiful, thank you. And what does a happy home mean to you?
Love. Secure functioning, devotion.
Beautiful, thank you. Well, I can't thank you enough, and thanks to everyone listening to us. But Stan, I can't wait to hopefully one day attend a workshop or a training or meet you in person. I do hope so. But
do the training.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to look into it now that you've just explained it to me. So thank you so much, Stan, and hopefully we'll connect again one day soon.
Be well, Jessica.